I'm Greg, 38, and I'm here because my world just flipped upside down. I've been married to my wife, Amanda, 36, for 10 years. We have what most people would call a decent marriage, 2 kids, a nice home in a suburban neighborhood, and a routine that, while predictable, felt stable. Or so I thought. Amanda has always been a little fiery. She's outspoken, quick-witted, and, let's face it, sometimes a bit too sharp with her words. I used to admire her confidence, but over the past year, it's felt more like a weapon than a charm. She's been distant, critical, and constantly on her phone. I chalked it up to stress. Raising kids and running a household isn't easy. But in the back of my mind, something didn't sit right. The first red flag came a few months ago when Amanda started dressing up more than usual. She'd wear makeup just to go to the grocery store or put on dresses for what she claimed were casual coffee dates with friends. I asked her about it once, and she snapped, "Why do you care? Can't I look nice for myself?" I let it go, not wanting to start a fight. Then there were the late nights. Amanda started staying out longer, saying she was with her book club or meeting up with her girlfriends. Again, I didn't push. She deserved her space, and I didn't want to be the overbearing husband. But when my job required me to take a week-long business trip, my gut told me to be cautious. I'd been away on trips before, but this time felt different. Amanda seemed almost excited to see me go, brushing off my goodbyes with a quick kiss and a have fun. Something about her reaction stuck with me, so before I left, I decided to install a couple of cameras in the house. It wasn't an easy decision, and I felt guilty even considering it, but my instincts were screaming that something was off. I set up 2 cameras, one in the living room and another in the kitchen. My justification was simple. If nothing was happening, I'd have peace of mind. But if something was going on, I'd finally have the truth. I had no idea what I was about to uncover. The first few days of my trip were uneventful. I checked the camera feeds in the evening and everything seemed normal. Amanda cooking dinner, the kids watching TV, the usual chaos of family life. It made me feel a little guilty for doubting her. Maybe I was overreacting. But then came Thursday night. I was sitting in my hotel room, finishing up some emails, when I got a motion alert from the living room camera. I opened the app and saw Amanda sitting on the couch with someone who wasn't me. It was our neighbor, Brandon. He's in his early 40s, recently divorced and always a little too friendly for my liking. I told myself they were just talking. Maybe he'd come over to borrow something or chat about neighborhood stuff. But as I watched, it became clear this wasn't some casual visit. Brandon leaned closer to Amanda, and she laughed in a way I hadn't seen in years. She touched his arm and my stomach churned. I kept watching, hoping it would stop there, but it didn't. She got up, poured them both drinks, and then sat back down, this time even closer. The camera didn't have audio, but I didn't need sound to understand what was happening. The way they looked at each other, the body language, the subtle touches, it was all too familiar. Then it happened. Brandon leaned in and kissed her. I froze, my heart pounding so loudly I thought I'd pass out. Amanda didn't pull away. Instead, she kissed him back, her hands moving to his shoulders. They didn't stop there. What followed was a blur of betrayal I'll never be able to unsee. I sat there watching the live feed like I was in some kind of nightmare. Part of me wanted to scream, to call her and confront her right then and there, but I didn't. I took screenshots and recorded the footage, my hands shaking the entire time. I knew I'd need the evidence later. When they were done, Brandon left, and Amanda sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. I felt sick, angry, and numb all at once. I didn't sleep that night. The reality of what I'd seen hit me like a freight train. My wife, the woman I trusted, the mother of my children, had just destroyed everything we'd built together. I spent the rest of my business trip in a haze, replaying that footage in my mind over and over again. I wanted answers, but more than that, I wanted her to know that I knew. I decided not to confront her over the phone. I wanted to see her face when I laid it all out. When I got home on Saturday evening, Amanda greeted me at the door with her usual bright smile. "Hey, welcome back," she said, giving me a quick kiss on the cheek. If I didn't know better, I might have believed everything was normal. But I knew better. "Thanks," I said, keeping my tone neutral. How was your week? Oh, same old, she said, turning back toward the kitchen. The kids were a handful as usual, but we managed. I followed her into the kitchen, my stomach churning. Anything interesting happen while I was gone? I asked casually, leaning against the counter. She didn't miss a beat. Nope, just the usual. Oh, Brandon came by one night to borrow a tool or something, but that's about it. I felt a flicker of rage but forced myself to stay calm. Borrow a tool? I repeated. Yeah, she said, avoiding eye contact. Why? I took a deep breath and pulled out my phone. Amanda, stop lying. I saw what happened. Her face froze, her hands stilling over the plate she was rinsing. What are you talking about? I opened the video and hit play, sliding the phone across the counter to her. The color drained from her face as she watched herself kissing Brandon on our couch. Care to explain? I asked, my voice cold. Amanda's mouth opened and closed a few times before she managed to stammer. You? You were spying on me? I laughed bitterly. Spying on you? Are you seriously trying to turn this around on me? You cheated on me in our home, Amanda, while I was away working for this family. Her expression shifted from shock to defiance. It was a mistake, she said quickly. I was drunk and he came on to me. I didn't mean for it to happen. A mistake, I snapped. You looked pretty sober to me, and this wasn't just some drunken slip. You planned this. You let him into our home, Amanda. How many other times has this happened? It hasn't, she said, her voice rising. It was just that one time. I swear. I didn't believe her. Do you think I'm an idiot? I said, my voice shaking with anger. Do you think I'm just going to take your word for it after you've lied to me so easily? She started crying then, her tears falling fast. Kyle, I'm sorry, she said, reaching for me. It didn't mean anything. I love you. Please, don't let this ruin us. I stepped back, refusing to let her touch me. It didn't mean anything? Do you hear yourself, Amanda? You betrayed me, and now you're trying to downplay it like it's no big deal. I'll do anything to fix this, she sobbed. Please, just give me a chance. I didn't respond. I walked out of the kitchen, leaving her standing there, crying into her hands. I spent that night on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying the confrontation over and over in my mind. Amanda's tears, her excuses, her audacity to act like this could just be swept under the rug. It all left me seething. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee. Amanda was in the kitchen, moving around like it was a normal Sunday morning. She set a mug in front of me and gave me a small, hesitant smile. Can we talk? She asked softly. I didn't want to talk, but I also knew I couldn't avoid this forever. Go ahead, I said, my voice flat. She sat across from me, clutching her own mug like it was a lifeline. Kyle, I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you. But I love you. And I love this family. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. Counseling, therapy, you name it. I just want to make things right. Her words sounded sincere, but I couldn't tell if they were coming from genuine regret or fear of losing her comfortable life. Amanda, you didn't just hurt me, I said, my voice firm. You destroyed my trust. You brought another man into our home, onto our couch, while I was away. Do you even understand how disgusting that is? She flinched, tears filling her eyes again. I know, she whispered. It was a terrible mistake. I wasn't thinking. Stop calling it a mistake. I interrupted, my voice rising. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. You made a conscious decision to betray me, and now you want me to believe it'll never happen again. Why should I trust you? She started sobbing again, but I felt no sympathy. I'll prove it to you, she said through her tears. I'll cut Brandon off completely. I'll do anything you ask. I leaned back, my arms crossed. It's not just about Brandon, Amanda. It's about you. How do I know you won't do this again with someone else? She didn't have an answer. That day I called a lawyer. I didn't tell Amanda right away. I wanted to gather my thoughts and weigh my options before making any final decisions. But the idea of staying in a marriage where I couldn't trust my wife seemed impossible. The hardest part was keeping it together for the kids. They didn't know what was going on, but they could sense the tension. Amanda tried to act normal around them, but I couldn't fake it. Every time I looked at her, I felt a mix of anger and sadness that I couldn't hide. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was truly alone. By Monday, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going to let Amanda or this situation control me anymore. I scheduled a follow-up meeting with my lawyer to start outlining my options for a divorce. I knew it wouldn't be easy, especially with the kids involved, but I couldn't live in a marriage built on lies and betrayal. That evening, when the kids were asleep, I sat Amanda down. She looked nervous, her hands twisting in her lap as she waited for me to speak. "I've thought about what you said," I began, keeping my voice steady, "and I've decided I can't do this anymore. I'm filing for divorce." Her face crumpled instantly. "Kyle, no," she said, her voice breaking. "Please don't do this. We can work through this. I'll do anything, therapy, counseling, whatever it takes. Just don't give up on us." "It's too late for that," I said firmly. "You gave up on us the moment you let Brandon into our house. This isn't something we can fix, Amanda. You broke us." She burst into tears, sobbing into her hands. But I didn't feel the usual pang of guilt that her tears used to stir in me. I felt numb. "What about the kids?" she cried, looking up at me. "What are we going to tell them?" "We'll figure it out," I said, though the thought of that conversation made my chest tighten. "But I'm not staying in this marriage just to keep up appearances. It's not fair to me, and it's not fair to them." Amanda tried to argue, to bargain, to make promises I knew she couldn't keep. But I stood my ground. After hours of back and forth, she finally stopped. Her face streaked with tears and her voice hoarse. "Fine," she said quietly. "If this is what you want, I won't fight you. But I hope you know this will ruin everything." I didn't respond. Everything had already been ruined the moment she made her choices. The next few days were tense. Amanda started sleeping in the guest room while I stayed in the master bedroom. We avoided each other as much as possible, speaking only when necessary. I started gathering documents for the divorce, bank statements, property records, anything my lawyer might need. Meanwhile, Brandon had the nerve to text me. "Brandon, hey man, I just wanted to apologize. I messed up, and I feel terrible about what happened." I stared at the message, my anger boiling over. I didn't respond. What could I even say to a man who'd betrayed me in the worst way possible? The situation was messy, and I knew it was only going to get messier. But for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was taking control of my life again. The hardest part of the whole ordeal wasn't Amanda's betrayal or even the decision to divorce. It was breaking the news to our kids. They were young, innocent, and had no idea what was happening beneath the surface of their seemingly normal family. A week after my conversation with Amanda, we sat down with the kids in the living room. I'd insisted on being honest but age-appropriate, sparing them the ugly details. Amanda had resisted at first, claiming they were too young to understand. But I wasn't going to sugarcoat the fact that things were about to change. The kids, Emma, 8, and Ryan, 6, sat on the couch, their wide eyes darting between us. Amanda and I exchanged a glance before I cleared my throat and started. "Kids, we need to talk about something important," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom and I love you both very much, and we always will. But sometimes, grown-ups have problems they can't fix, no matter how hard they try. And because of that, we've decided that we're going to live in different houses from now on." Emma's face crumpled instantly. "What? No. Why?" she cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. Ryan looked confused, clutching his favorite stuffed animal. "Are you getting a divorce?" he asked, his voice small. I nodded, my heart breaking. "Yes, buddy. But that doesn't change how much we love you. We're still a family, just in a different way." Amanda tried to chime in, her voice shaky. "We'll both still be here for you, and we'll make sure you get to see us both all the time. Nothing's your fault. This is between Dad and me." Emma sobbed uncontrollably, burying her face in her hands. "But I don't want you to live in different houses. I want us to stay together." I fought back my own tears, wrapping an arm around her. "I know this is hard, sweetheart. It's hard for all of us. But we'll get through it together. I promise. Ryan didn't say much. He just clung to me like his life depended on it. His silence somehow more heartbreaking than Emma's cries. That night, after we put the kids to bed, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the empty walls. Amanda passed by once, her face red from crying, but I didn't acknowledge her. For the first time, the reality of what we were losing hit me full force. The life we'd built, the family we'd created, was gone. And while I knew I was doing the right thing by leaving, the pain of watching it all fall apart was almost too much to bear. After we broke the news to the kids, things started moving quickly. Amanda and I agreed that it would be best for her to move out first, given the circumstances. She found an apartment nearby so the kids could still see her regularly, and within a couple of weeks, she started packing her things. Watching her leave felt surreal. As she carried box after box out of the house, I couldn't help but think about how different things were just a few months ago. Back then, I thought we had a solid marriage, a good life. Now all of it felt like a lie. The first night without her was strange. The house was quiet, almost too quiet. Emma and Ryan were asleep, and for the first time in years, I sat in the living room alone, without Amanda's presence filling the space. It should have felt like a relief, and in some ways it did, but it also left me with a strange emptiness. The next few weeks were a roller coaster. The kids struggled to adjust, especially Emma. She'd burst into tears at random moments, asking when things would go back to normal. "Why can't Mom just come home?" she'd ask, and every time, I'd have to explain gently that things weren't going to be the same anymore. Ryan was quieter, but I could tell he was holding it all inside. One night, as I was tucking him into bed, he asked, "Did I do something wrong, Dad? Is that why Mom left?" My heart shattered. "No, buddy," I said, pulling him into a hug. "None of this is your fault. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and those mistakes change things. But Mom and I both love you more than anything, and that will never change." As hard as it was to navigate the kids' emotions, I found moments of clarity for myself. Therapy helped. My sessions became a space where I could process my anger, sadness, and lingering guilt. My therapist reminded me that leaving wasn't a failure. It was a step toward reclaiming my life and building something healthier for me and the kids. Amanda tried to reach out a few times, texting or calling to check in. Sometimes she'd offer to come over and help with the kids or suggest meeting up to talk. I kept our interactions brief and focused solely on co-parenting. I wasn't interested in rehashing the past or giving her any false hope. One day, while cleaning out a drawer in the bedroom, I found an old photo of the two of us from our early years. We looked so happy, so in love. For a moment, I felt a pang of nostalgia, a longing for what we used to have. But then I remembered the footage, the lies, and the betrayal. That life was gone, and there was no getting it back. I threw the photo in the trash. With Amanda gone and the divorce proceedings moving forward, I started focusing on rebuilding my life. At first, it felt like I was just going through the motions, work, taking care of the kids, and trying to fill the emptiness that her betrayal had left behind. But little by little, I started finding moments of clarity and strength. One of the biggest steps was creating a new routine for the kids and me. Saturday mornings became pancake day, and I let Emma and Ryan help in the kitchen. It was messy, sure, but seeing their smiles as they flipped lopsided pancakes reminded me of what really mattered. I also reconnected with old friends, something I'd neglected during my marriage. My buddy Mike invited me out for drinks one night, and I reluctantly agreed. Sitting at the bar, venting about everything, I realized how much I'd bottled up. Mike, ever the blunt one, leaned over and said, "You know, Greg, this isn't the end for you. Sucks now, but you're a good guy. You'll come out of this stronger." I wasn't sure I believed him at the time, but his words stuck with me. As for Amanda, she continued trying to make amends. She'd text occasionally, suggesting we talk or even go to therapy together. I shut that down every time. Therapy might have helped her process what she did, but it wasn't going to fix what was broken between us. One day, while dropping the kids off at her apartment, she tried again. "Kyle, I know you don't want to hear this, but I really am sorry. I've been working on myself and I hope one day you can forgive me. I looked at her, and for the first time I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pity either, just indifference. I don't know if forgiveness is in the cards, Amanda, I said. But I'm glad you're working on yourself. It's the least you can do. Driving away that day, I realized something important. I wasn't carrying the weight of her betrayal anymore. It didn't consume me like it used to. I wasn't over it by any means, but I was learning to let go, piece by piece. I started finding joy in small things again. Taking the kids to the park, cooking meals we actually enjoyed, and even joining a local gym. It wasn't about revenge or proving something to Amanda. It was about rediscovering myself and what made me happy. For the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope. The finalization of the divorce felt like the end of a long, brutal chapter. Sitting in my lawyer's office, signing the papers, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief, sadness, and a touch of bitterness. This wasn't how I imagined my life turning out, but at least now, I had clarity. When the judge approved the divorce, I got a text from Amanda. Amanda, it's official. I hope one day you'll find peace with all of this.
I'm sorry, Kyle.
Truly. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. In the days that followed, I worked on turning the page for good. I cleared out the house, getting rid of things that reminded me of Amanda. Old photos, mementos from vacations, even some furniture. It all went. I wanted the space to feel like mine, not a shadow of what we used to have. Emma and Ryan adjusted faster than I expected. Kids are resilient in ways that adults aren't, and though they still missed the idea of a normal family, they seemed to thrive in the new routine we'd built. One night, as I tucked Emma into bed, she looked up at me and said, "I like it when it's just us, Dad. It feels happy." Her words hit me harder than I expected. For so long, I'd been worried about how the divorce would affect them, but hearing her say that made me realize I'd made the right decision. I started finding closure in unexpected ways. One afternoon, while sorting through some old papers, I stumbled across a note Amanda had written me years ago. It was from when we were first dating, full of sweet words and promises of forever. I read it once, then folded it up and tossed it in the trash. That version of us was gone, and clinging to it wouldn't bring it back. The neighborhood was a different story. Brandon had all but disappeared after the affair came to light. His house went up for sale a month after the divorce was finalized, and I heard through the grapevine that he moved to another state. Good riddance. One evening, Mike came over with a six-pack and a pizza. As we sat on the back porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon, he raised a beer. "To new beginnings," he said. "To new beginnings," I echoed, clinking my bottle against his. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. The storm had passed, and though there was still healing to do, I knew I was headed in the right direction. With the divorce behind me, life started to feel lighter. The weight of Amanda's betrayal wasn't entirely gone, but it no longer consumed me. I'd spent so much time focused on what I'd lost that I hadn't realized how much I'd gained. Clarity, peace, and the chance to build a life that wasn't tied to lies. Emma and Ryan became my focus. We developed new traditions, movie nights on Fridays, weekend hikes at a nearby trail, and even a spontaneous beach trip that turned into one of the best weekends we'd ever had. The laughter and closeness we found in those moments reminded me that we were still a family, even if it looked different now. One night, as Emma helped me clean up after dinner, she asked, "Are you happy now, Dad?" Her question caught me off guard. I paused, drying a plate, and thought about it. "You know what?" I said, smiling at her. "I think I am." She beamed, and in that moment, I knew I was on the right path. I also started focusing on myself, something I hadn't done in years. I joined a local gym, took up cycling, and even signed up for a cooking class. It felt good to rediscover the parts of myself I'd lost in the chaos of marriage and family life. As for Amanda, we kept things civil for the kids. She'd pick them up for her scheduled weekends, and while our conversations were brief, they were polite. She still sent the occasional text, apologizing or checking in, but I rarely replied. I wasn't angry anymore. I just didn't have room for her in the new life I was building. The kids seemed to be adjusting well, too. Ryan, who had been so quiet after the divorce, started opening up more. He told me about a science project he was excited about, a new friend at school, and how he wanted to try out for the soccer team. Emma started talking about her dreams of becoming a vet, and I promised to take her to a local animal shelter to volunteer. One day, as I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the kids play in the yard, I realized something. I'd made it through the storm. It hadn't been easy, and there were days when I thought I'd never recover, but I had. For anyone going through a similar situation, here's what I've learned. Betrayal hurts, but it doesn't define you. Healing takes time, and it's not linear, but it's possible. Surround yourself with people who lift you up. Focus on what matters most, and never settle for less than you deserve. I'm still figuring things out, but for the first time in a long time, I'm hopeful about the future. And that's a good place to start. Thank you for staying with me. This crazy journey is finally over, and I'm ready for what's next. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more interesting stories. And leave a comment with what you would do in this situation. See you in the next videos.